Okay, now we want to look at Decision 2022, where we are looking at a history-making matchup for Michigan's highest office.
Yeah, Republican voters are getting behind Tudor Dixon, who earned the GOP gubernatorial nomination in Tuesday's primary. She's going to face off against Governor Whitmer come November in the general election.
And it is the first time, if you haven't heard this before, that two women are on that ticket for governor. So Grant Herms has been with us throughout the night and into the morning with all of the results, and joined this time around by Pollster Richard Zuba, who also pulled an all-nighter for us. And it keeps going because we're still waiting to get some more of the results in.
We are. We'll talk about that in just a second, Rhonda. So, Richard, let's start at the top of the ticket here, and the Trump factor in this race cannot be ignored. Let's dig into that a little bit here.
Well, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we had polling that showed Tudor Dixon with a slight lead on Rinke and Soldano. It showed that whoever Donald Trump endorsed would likely jump by a good 20 points. And look at that number, 41. She had a huge win. Trump clearly controls the top of the party yet in Michigan, and it played out not only here, but over in Grand Rapids.
Why don't we take a look at that race, too? The third here, that's John Gibbs. You're talking about that. So it's the Trump effect here. We're also talk some Democratic money in this race as well. But let's start with the Trump effect here. I mean, Peter Meijer voting for impeachment, number 2, and that really might have been the vote he cast that kicked him out of office.
Well, it certainly was. But I think we need to step back and realize, look at that name, Meijer, one of the most revered names in Michigan, and certainly one of the most revered names in West Michigan, and he lost. That is the power of Donald Trump yet in the Republican Party, that a name like Pete Meijer could lose.
Yeah. Let's talk about the money factor in this race specifically, because that's interesting and also a risky move for Democrats.
It was. John Gibbs is clearly a weaker general election candidate. The Cook Political Report, which is a renowned report, has moved this race now to a lean Democratic race, whereas if Pete Meijer had won, it would have been a toss-up or lean Republican race. But the Democrats came in, spend money. You know, it's interesting. They didn't say anything that they wouldn't be saying today, but they merely elevated Gibbs' name ID. It was a risky move, and it paid off for the Democrats.
What a time we're living in here, where that kind of a thing is going to happen out west, where the Democratic money could actually impact the Republican race. If we go back to the governor's race, too, and we're talking about the influence of money, you've got all of a sudden people saying DeVos money in Michigan, no good here. What is this?
You know, but it's interesting that Donald Trump made a move in the governor's race that helped unite the Republican Party, that brought together the two competing factions behind Tudor Dixon. The question is, Rinke, Soldano, Kelly, their supporters, will they come along? That's the challenge for Tudor Dixon in the next 30 days, I think, to show that she can unite the Republican Party and make this a competitive race.
And also raise some money there, too, right? Not a lot left in that war chest to move on to the general.
Well, you know, I think one of the things I've always said, on August 3rd, we're going to be looking at Tudor Dixon's campaign with very little money, staring down at millions in the coffers for the Democrats and Gretchen Whitmer, and they're going to spend the next 30 days defining Tudor Dixon.
And one of the races I think that we can't miss here when we talk about money is also the 11th district here. Let me get into the right side of that race here. Or the left side of that race, I really should say here. The Stevens-Levin race here, I mean, the amount of outside money that flowed into this district was just something incredible to see here.
Right. I think the money that people are underestimating in this district is Emily's List money. And I think what we saw here, first of all, was a changing of the guard. I mean, we talk about new leaders in Michigan. Haley Stevens, that's one of the new leaders in Michigan. She cemented her place here. We no longer have 11 in office in Michigan.
First time in 54 years.
It's been a long time coming, man. But money made a difference here. You know, as we look across all these districts and all these races, money mattered.
Also, one of the things, too, you mentioned Emily's List. This district right here, Birmingham, Royal Oak, part of Ferndale there, that's Mallory McMorrow, $1 million raised there. Also, we're talking about the voting women here and the swing there, especially with abortion on the ballot in Michigan in November. Well,
we saw what happened in Kansas last night. You know, some of the interesting numbers I'm seeing coming out of Kansas was that 90% of Biden's vote from the presidential turned out. 50% comparatively of the Trump vote turned out on the Kansas issue. This vote, this constitutional amendment in Michigan coming in November, is going to turn out voters, and Democrats are highly energized, particularly women.
Sure. Richard Zuba for us this morning, breaking everything down so I didn't have to this time. Richard, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.